What's going on, guys? My name is Wade with Tech Daily, and in this video we are checking out the new 2022 Moto G Power. Now, over the last couple of years, this phone, at least here in the US, has been one of Motorola's best-selling devices, and it tends to offer a good array of features that people want. Mainly a big screen, huge, long-lasting battery, familiar Android experience, and little things like a fingerprint sensor, headphone jack, and SD card slot that now tend to get taken away from a lot of other phones. It's no doubt a good, well-rounded device on the surface, and for this new 2022 version, Motorola did bring about a handful of changes to refresh this phone and update it a bit too. To kick things off though, I want to just quickly unbox this phone so you can at least see what all comes inside the package when you buy one, and then we'll dive on in and see what the new 2022 Moto G Power has to offer. So you can probably tell right off the bat, Motorola hasn't really changed their packaging at all now for years, and pulling open the flimsy cardboard box, the first thing we see is we get a stack of paperwork and instructions along with a diagram of the phone if you need to learn more about it as you use it, and at the very bottom of the box, a few more included accessories. There's a SIM ejector tool stuck inside that little piece of cardboard there, as well as a USB-A to USB-C cable and Motorola's standard issue 10-watt charging brick. With all that stuff out of the way, here is the new Moto G Power once again. This year, the phone comes in just one color, black. Physically, like I mentioned already, and as you can probably tell, the Moto G Power is a fairly large device. This year, the screen size comes in at 6.5 inches. In years past, it was 6.4 and 6.6, and up front, you are still sort of stuck with that budget Motorola look. The display is framed by noticeable black borders all around, and a bottom chin that, to be honest, looks a bit bigger than I remember, for a screen-to-body ratio of just shy of 80%. The selfie camera is also now in the center, no more corner placement, and in the hand, while the phone is relatively manageable, you definitely feel all those inches, and it's not necessarily the best use of screen space with all those bezels, but it's workable nonetheless. Around back this year, the Moto G Power gets a totally refreshed look. The back panel remains plastic, but there's this sort of new wavy, bumpy texture now that's kind of interesting, and a new camera module setup and placement. And while there's no IP rating, the phone is once again what Motorola calls water repellent, which is good, though from top to bottom, the phone is all plastic, including the edges and frame. So it's a lighter feeling phone with less premium materials, but nothing we haven't seen from Motorola before. Taking a look around at everything else, like I said at the start, this phone fortunately has a little bit of everything. The left side has a SIM and SD card tray for expandable storage, which is great. The right side has a textured power button and volume buttons. Up top, the good old headphone jack is still there if you need it. Down below, the USB-C charging port and a single speaker setup. There's the selfie camera, of course, positioned below the earpiece at the front, and finally, around back, the triple lens camera setup and that classic Motorola dimple, which hides the fingerprint sensor. Now, this is something I still love about these budget Motorola devices. I think the placement is spot on. The little dimple thing is easy to feel for and find. It works well too, and it's a feature I have no problem still having. There's face unlock too on this phone. It works fine as well, but really that fingerprint sensor is what does it for me. With the out loud listening experience, Motorola, for some reason, still refuses to bring back the dual speaker setup they offered on this phone a couple of years ago. We once again have just the downward firing speaker, which is fine. It's loud enough and gets the job done. I just don't know why Motorola teased us with a better out loud listening experience back in 2020 and just never brought it back. Similarly, when it comes to the viewing experience, once again, Motorola sorta kinda left us with a meh display, even though they have offered something better before. Though there is one actual upgrade worth mentioning here this time around. Spec-wise, it's once again an IPS LCD panel, coming in at a resolution of just 1600 by 720, all of barely 270 pixels per inch, which on a screen this big isn't too great. Now, fortunately, I consider the viewing experience to be maybe slightly better than average. It's very bright, which is good for an LCD panel, maybe lacking a bit color-wise, but for most movie binging and YouTube watching, it's gonna be fine. I mainly just wish it were a bit sharper given how big of a screen it is. You can probably pick out those pixels if you look close enough at it. The upgrade I alluded to earlier is that this display is now a 90Hz panel. That makes things feel a little smoother, a little faster, and a little more responsive. It's great to have, don't get me wrong, but collectively, the displays on most of these mid-range and budget Motorola phones haven't been too great, especially since, again, in 2020, we at least saw a full HD 1080p screen. Inside, the new Moto G power packs a relatively new and somewhat unique processor, the MediaTek Helio G37. This chipset was announced back in December. It's definitely a lower level processor, but it's just a month or so from launch, so it's at least the latest in its space. Also, this year, the phone starts at 64 gigs of storage, double last year, with the 128 gig option if you want it as well. Again, double what you could get in 2021. So storage-wise and spec-wise, you are getting newer and better. With 4 gigs of RAM as well, you get a little more there to start. So across the board, really, this phone offers more for your money, which is great. I do think, though, that Motorola's software experience is a bit behind the times. On the one hand, everything here is very familiar, but that's because this phone ships with Android 11. I do generally like Motorola's Android experience. I think it's fairly straightforward, relatively well optimized with useful tweaks and add-ons. It's just dated now, unfortunately, and I think that shows. I think an Android 12 update and refreshed Motorola skin will do this phone well in the coming months. It's just a shame that we don't have it yet. Probably the biggest selling point for the Moto G Power, and the whole reason for its name and its existence, of course, is its large battery. This phone once again packs a 5,000 milliamp battery inside. Now, Motorola advertises this phone as having a 3-day battery life, and I suppose if you use your phone sparingly, you might get that out of it, but more realistically for most people, this is about a 2-day device under normal usage. And that's great considering the included 10-watt charger is going to take 3 to 4 hours to juice this thing back up to 100%. All in all, you'll definitely be staying off the charger for sure. I expect to get 16 to 18 hours of screen on time. And that's literally the whole point of this device. But with slow charging speeds and no wireless charging either, the power options on the Moto G Power are relatively limited. Finally, let's talk about those refreshed cameras around back. Now, the triple lens setup on the Moto G Power is made up of a new 50 megapixel f1.8 aperture main shooter and familiar 2 megapixel depth sensor and 2 megapixel macro. The selfie camera, by the way, seems to be the same 8 megapixel f2.0 aperture lens from last year's phone, though fortunately with a few test selfies here, things look surprisingly good. So while the specs don't seem to be any better, the end result is at least solid, with a nice looking selfie picture, and I'm pleasantly surprised. Inside the camera app, Motorola does offer actually a pretty complete array of shooting modes and features to make the most of the camera setup. There's some Moto specific stuff still, like cutout, spot color, and live filters, and there's more valuable stuff like night mode, pro controls, dual camera capture, and obviously the option to utilize the full 50 megapixels of the rear lens if you want to capture as much detail as possible. All in all, the new 2022 Moto G Power is absolutely a continuation of what works well for Motorola, offering just a big phone with a big screen and long-lasting battery. It's a very complete phone too, for the most part. All the little things are there, like I mentioned, the fingerprint sensor, the headphone jack. Hopefully you guys did enjoy this video though, and I'll see you guys later.